Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Jeff, the IT guy. Today we're going to be taking a look at the iPad Pro. This is the M1 version, and we're going to be looking to see if this has a place in the IT workforce as an IT professional. And so today in this video, we're going to go over like some general things about the iPad Pro. We'll do like my thoughts at the end of what I think, whether it will work, whether it won't work, what it does well, what it doesn't do, things of that nature. And so the iPad Pro, the new one, it's got the M1 chip in it, just like the MacBook Air, MacBook Pro, and the Mac Mini, and now the iMac. So we know it has power, right? We know it has quite a bit of power, actually, to do a lot of professional tasks. You can do crazy amounts of video editing on the M1 chip. You can do audio and photography, all sorts of stuff, everything that you would do normally, whether you're in PowerShell or maybe you're writing an app, whatever you're doing, we know it has a lot of power. And so what I set out to do is I set out to see if I could replace my MacBook Pro that I use for work with the iPad Pro. And I put it through its paces. Whenever I had to go into the office, I took it with me. Whenever I was using it here at the house, in my home office, I would use it, etc. And so some of the great things about the iPad Pro, of course, is it's a tablet, right? So, it's a tablet. Works well with the Apple Pencil too, which is fantastic if you want to do stuff. And then, of course, you can get the Magic Keyboard, as I have here, which is another, $350 accessory to really take it to the laptop level. It's a fantastic keyboard. It types really well. And it's even got a trackpad and stuff, which works in iPad OS. Now, one of the things I will say straight out of the gate about this is I had limited expectations. I didn't expect for it to do everything that I thought it would do or should do. I knew that there was going to be certain things lacking. I just didn't know what was lacking. And so, of course, on the iPad Pro, you can get your Teams app going. So, you can use Teams, you can use Outlook, Gmail, everything like that. You've got it all going. It works well. You got Word, all the Microsoft applications that you could use for your job are on here, as well as with Google. So you can have Google Calendar, Meets, Chrome, all of that stuff, for your productivity. So that's one of the good things about this, is you can do that, of course. So that worked well. Being able to use Teams, it often worked better for me, at least on Teams, than what it did on the desktop application. And so I thought it was really, really well how well it did work. Of course, you can even do stuff like Unify. So if you can do your Unify networking, you can open it up, you can connect to it, you can do all of your networking through Unify. Let's say you've got an UDM Pro set up, you can do your APs and everything. You can look and see what you have going on. So if I wanted to look and see what ports I have active on my 48 port switch, or I want to look at my UDM Pro, I can see what's being used on there. So that works really well. And so you're able to manage your network, thinking about it as an IT guy. Something else, of course, is you can use browsers, so Safari, Chrome, etc. And so if you work in, for example, cloud architecting, you can do some of your cloud architecting on here, as long as you're willing to sacrifice being able to use a command prompt or a terminal, which is kind of lame. I will say that. It's not the biggest hindrance in the world, but it is a hindrance if you want to connect, for example, to Azure using PowerShell, or AWS using a terminal or something, using those command line interfaces, those APIs for those two services. However, you can always open up a window. You can work in AWS, you can work in Azure, you can do all of those things. Okay, so you can go in and look, and there's even apps. There's an Azure app that you can use on here. So there's a mobile app, which is really cool. I don't think AWS has a mobile app, but Azure does. And so if you work in Azure, you can obviously do some work on the iPad Pro. You can also, of course, use the iPad Pro for stuff like Pluralsight, you know, if you want to take notes using OneNote. The pen is great for that. If you're walking around, let's say you're working on your networking, you need to do some network diagramming, you can do a rough sketch with your Apple Pencil. You can take notes if you have to go to meetings, of course. And it works really well for that. It really does. It's fantastic. And of course, you know, you can detach it, walk around with it, drop your pen. You know, you can walk around with it, take notes, do all that stuff that connects to it. What's really cool about the Magic Keyboard is that it has a USB-C port on the side, and that will charge both your keyboard and your tablet. So that's really cool as well. The Magic Keyboard is a worthy accessory for this, as is the pen. So, like I said, I set out to use this. And it didn't take me very long, unfortunately, to go back to my laptop. And let's talk about why. Because that's really the reason you're here. You know what it's going to do. You want to know what it can't do. Of course. Right? So, terminal, PowerShell, something like that, forget about it. There is an SSH terminal in which you can SSH into things. And so that might be an option for you. You know, if you want to set up a VM, or, you know, with Microsoft, you can set up services and stuff. You can connect to it via your iPad Pro. You can, you know, create a desktop in Azure that you can use, and you can go in, and that can be your desktop, you know, and you can use this on the go, which is a great way to use it. But for anything that's like serious in the terminal or PowerShell or, you know, Bash, whatever, you're going to be lacking. And so one of the terminals that I use, it's called Terminus, and or Termius. It is an SSH terminal, right? So it's an SSH terminal. You can use it for some stuff, but not really. It's for SSH, Telnet, you know, SFTP, all that stuff, right? You can use it for that. So that kind of helps if you want to SSH into something. So if you have one of the things I did notice while using this, though, was G Suite Admin. And so even though it's a browser-based tool, you know, doing your Google administration, it didn't work that well. That could be on Google parts. That could just be on the iPad's part. I couldn't tell you. I tried it in Safari. I tried it in Chrome. And I could not do things inside of G Suite Admin. I could go in, I could look at things, but like I say, if I wanted to suspend, delete a user, change an organizational unit, do any sort of account management inside of that, I could not. I don't know why, but like I said, I tried multiple different browsers and it just wouldn't work. And that was a huge hindrance. Now, Office 365 worked fine. You're able to go in and manage Office 365 with no problem, or at least in my opinion, no problem using this. And so that was really cool that I could go in and do it for that. So let's talk about what I think you should use your iPad Pro for. I think your iPad Pro is more of a companion. Or if you do most of your work and you have to travel sometimes like on site, you could potentially use it for that depending on what you need to use it for. If it's just so that you can administrate via a browser such as Azure, you're probably good to go. If it's because you need to work inside of Azure AD, you're probably going to want to do a lot of that through PowerShell. Or maybe you're trying to do an architecture diagram. You could do that on here using your Apple Pen and everything. And so I think it's a really good companion piece. I don't think it replaces a laptop, at least for me, in my opinion. It doesn't replace a laptop for me, but you can get really close to it. Now, that may change. It may change that more apps come out to utilize the power of the M1. You never know. Maybe one day the M1 iPad Pro will run some version of OS X. Maybe it'll run iPad OS and OS X. Maybe it'll be a combination of the two. Who knows? If it went that far, though, it would, in my opinion, replace the laptop. But you can, like I said, use it as a companion piece. If you're going out, you're going to on-site, and you need to take care of some things there, You know, maybe you just need Teams, you need Outlook, which works fine on here. So let's say you need Teams, Outlook, you need to manage stuff in a browser, that's fine. Maybe you need to connect via SSH to a server, you're good. Or maybe you run in Ubiquiti, you can go ahead, use that application on this, and you're going to be good to go. But if you need to do anything more than that, you're going to be severely limited. And that's what I noticed. I noticed that for 90% of the stuff that I had to do while I took this with me into the office, and this is the only thing I took. This is the only thing I took with me. Whenever I went into the office, I was able to complete about 90% of the things that I needed to do in my day-to-day job as an IT professional. About 90%. And the other 10% were like these one-offs that would happen every now and then. If you're more into, in my opinion, in the cloud architecture, I think you're going to rely on the command line tools more so than what you would the browser-based tools, especially if you're going to do something like Terraform or you're working with Docker. You're not going to be able to do that on here. You know, you can forget about it. You're not going to be able to do that on here. And so at the end of the day, it really depends on your use case. If you need something that's a companion, that maybe you just want to remote into your system at home, you can do that on here. Like you can remote into your system on here. Or maybe you have a system in the cloud, whether that's through, you know, AWS or Azure. You've got a desktop instance that you can remote into. You can do that on here, and it'll work fine. I mean, of course, you're going to deal with some lagginess, but at least you'll have some form of desktop OS. But if this is the only thing that you plan on buying, because it's not cheap, you're looking at $1,000 plus $350. That's $1,350. You add the pen, that's like $1,500. Apple Care, that's another $200 or something. You're looking at a $1,700 investment. You'd be much better off going with a MacBook Pro, MacBook Air. I mean, you could get a MacBook Air and an iPad Air for the same price as all of this. Or you could get something like an XPS system from Dell if you're a Windows guy. Or girl, you know. But hey, this has been Jeff the IT guy. Thanks for hanging around. Let me know what you think about the iPad Pro M1. Are you using it in your professional career? If so, tell me what use cases you're using it for, because I only know what I do. So let me know what it is that you do on the iPad Pro. Yeah. And thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more videos. We've got a review of a Lenovo Legion Tower T7i coming up. We're also going to be doing some upgrades to it. It's going to be awesome. I think you're really going to enjoy the review on the Tower and then all the upgrade videos that we do. I think you're going to enjoy those as well. We've got a lot of other stuff coming here on the channel. I'm going to be showing you if you can develop, if you can do some development on the iPad Pro. And so we're going to look at it. We're going to look at some apps. We're going to see how close it is that we can actually be to getting to develop. And if we have a pretty decent and developing environment, you know, that's going to be exciting to look at. And so there's just going to be a lot of stuff. Also, listen, you'll probably notice a new banner, a new logo, and stuff like that. I want to give a huge shout out to Odd Duck Oasis, who did that work. She did a fantastic job. And so I'm going to have her information linked below so that you can go and check her out if you need anything, some digital art made for you. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and stick around. Have a great day.